So in this video, we're going to cover sutures of the skull, then fontanelles and sinuses, because these are all quite easy. So first off, you need to know what a suture is. So if you know what a suture is in life, it's like a stitch. Well, a suture in your skull is really an immovable joint, but it is going to look like a stitch. So it's going to be like that. So when you look at a skull, it looks like somebody's sewn two bones together. And so the four sutures that we're going to learn is the coronal suture, the squamous suture, sagittal suture, and the lambdoid suture. And I've got the word parietal here because they all connect the parietal. So I would like you to know which bone is connected to the parietal. So the coronal is going to be the parietal to the frontal bone. The squamous is going to be the parietal to the temporal bone. Remember, squamous means flat, so the flat side of your skull would be the side over where that temporal bone is. Of course, you've got that sagittal plane, and that's in the top of your head, cutting you. That mid-sagittal would cut you in half. So this is actually connecting both parietals, the left and the right parietal. There's a suture that is cutting that. And then the lambdoid, which is my favorite, by the way, is the parietal and the occipital. For a long time, I didn't know why it was called lambdoid, but apparently it's named after lambda, the Greek letter, and it has a symbol that kind of looks like that, and so that's why it's called lambdoid. So let's label it on our little picture, and let's look at it on some of the skulls. So let's first look at it. So again, this was the frontal bone. Our eyes are up here. So this one is on the crown of your head. So this is the coronal suture. This one is that sagittal suture. And here is our squamous on the flat part of our head, the squamous suture. And then back here, this one, if I could see the other part of the skull, it would be making like that upside down U or that lambda look. This is the lambdoid suture. So let's label it on our little thing that we've been labeling. If I can get back there to that. All right, so this one right here, that is the coronal suture. And so you can write it, you can make it look a little bit more stitchy if you want. And I've got these in red. Coronal suture. You can't see the sagittal suture, so I'm going to draw some little lines. If you want to, it does go all the way down like this. And so that would be the sagittal suture. Back here, touching that occipital, would be that lambdoid suture. And you do have to write the word suture. I left off the E up there. And then this one here that's connecting, again, we're getting all those that are connecting to the parietal bone. There are others. So this is the squamous suture right there. So that's suture. So now let's look at some fontanelles. So a fontanelle is a soft spot, basically. So we would see this on the baby, the infant. So this is a soft spot. Any of you that have had children know that there are some soft spots. The skull is coming together, is suturing together, those joints will come together. But when a baby's first born, they still have that to the top of their head. They have a very big soft spot there, and will eventually grow together. So if the baby ever gets mad, it almost looks like it's pulsing. And so let's see if this makes sense. You have one that's the frontal fontanelle and one that's going to be called the occipital fontanelle. There are others, but most of them have grown in by the time the baby is born. Or you can use the word anterior and posterior, so the one in the front, the one in the back. So here we're looking at, this is a fontanelle, and it can be spelt this way as well, so both are acceptable. So this is the soft spot. This one would be the anterior or the frontal fontanelle, and the one back in the back that is a picture of the little infant that we've got, the skull we've got there. So that one on the top of the head, that's touching that frontal bone. So anterior fontanelle or frontal fontanelle. And then the one that is back here in the occipital region, occipital fontanelle or posterior fontanelle. So fontanelles are pretty easy. Also easy are sinuses. So a sinus is basically a cavity, a hole that's been drilled in that usually fills up with mucus. And if you have sinuses, you understand this, okay? So if you have problems with your sinuses, I should say, everybody has sinuses. So you can get sinus infection when we get gunk built up into those. And so the sinuses are actually easy because the way I will word it for you is name the cavity in this bone. So if you know the bone, then you know, I don't know if you guys can see, I've got part of that cut off. Hold on, let's see if I can fix that. Nope, that says frontal sinus, but I can't get that to fix. But so this is the skull that we do have, and I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm hoping we still got it somewhere. But this is a real skull that a dentist has given us, and I don't know what he had it for, but somebody has drilled into it so that you can see that hole in there. So sometimes you have a really bad headache and it's just from the sinus pressure build up. So if I ask for the cavity in the bone, your frontal bone, this would be the frontal sinus. And so this is your maxilla bone. So the cavity here would be the maxillary sinus. And then this is the ethmoid bone, and we talked about those little holes there. If they fill up, those cavities there are called your ethmoidal sinuses. And then this is your sphenoid, and that's the way it looks stuck in your skull there, but it is that connector bone. When you get to look at the model, you'll see it's got some little holes in it. Not the holes that your nerves go through, but the holes that look like maybe it holds some mucus or something. So, but if I ask for the cavity in this, that's the key word. If I ask for cavity, then you know I want the sinus, so that would be the sphenoidal sinus. All right, so that's your fontanelles, your sutures, and your sinuses.